Cancer neighbor spread rumors about me. The HOA read my timeline, not his tears Eleanor Vance's life in Willow Creek Estates. A meticulously planned community nestled on the outskirts of Raleigh, North Carolina, was, for the better part of a decade, a symphony of quiet contentment. Her craftsman-style home, with its sun-drenched porch and a small, vibrant rose garden, was her sanctuary. A freelance graphic designer specializing in corporate branding and web design, Ellie thrived on precision and aesthetic harmony. Her days unfolded with a comforting rhythm. Morning coffee with Luna, her ginger tabby, perched on the windowsill, followed by hours immersed in the glow of her dual monitors, shaping pixels into compelling narratives for clients across the country. Evenings were for long walks on the community's paved trails, the scent of pine and fresh-cut grass a familiar comfort, or quiet dinners on her porch, watching fireflies dance in the warm southern twilight. At 38, Ellie had built a life of independence and quiet dignity, respected by her few close friends and largely unobtrusive within the bustling microcosm of the HOA-managed neighborhood. She prided herself on being a good neighbor, always adhering to the community's strict, yet reasonable, bylaws regarding property maintenance, noise levels, and architectural consistency. Her lawn was always neatly trimmed, her recycling bins always out on the correct day and retrieved promptly, her home a testament to the order she cherished. The first dissonant note in this well-ordered existence arrived with Harold Hal Jensen. A retired civil engineer in his late 60s, Hal moved into the house directly across the cul-de-sac from Ellie's about a year prior. Initially, he seemed like any other new resident. A bit boisterous, perhaps, with an overly firm handshake and a penchant for unsolicited advice on local gardening. Ellie, always polite, offered him a plate of her famous lemon bars and a friendly wave whenever she saw him. Their interactions were superficial, cordial. But soon, a subtle shift began. Hal, seemingly with an abundance of time on his hands, developed an almost obsessive interest in the goings-on of Willow Creek. He was always pruning, always sweeping, always watching. Ellie noticed his gaze lingering a moment too long on her guests leaving late at night, or on the delivery vans that frequented her driveway. It was unnerving, a low hum beneath the surface of her peaceful routine. The whispers began innocuously enough, like dandelion seeds carried on the wind. First, it was through Mrs. Henderson, a well-meaning but notoriously gossipy woman from 2 streets over. "Ellie," she'd said, her voice dropping conspiratorially at the community picnic, "I heard you've been having some rather boisterous gatherings lately. You know, with all the cars and late-night laughter." Ellie had blinked, genuinely confused. She had hosted a small, intimate gathering for her birthday a few weeks prior, 4 friends, quiet conversation, music barely audible beyond her living room. There had been no boisterous gatherings. She dismissed it as a misunderstanding, a misheard rumor. But then an official HOA notice arrived, citing a violation for excessive noise after 10 p.m. Ellie was baffled. She responded with a polite, but firm, email explaining the situation. The notice was rescinded, but the seed of doubt had been planted. The incidents escalated, growing more frequent and more pointed. Another HOA notice about unapproved landscaping when she'd merely added a small, tasteful bird bath. A snide comment from a neighbor about her, unusual work hours implying she was unproductive, when her freelance schedule simply meant she wasn't tied to a 9-5. Then came the concerns about her cat, Luna, supposedly venturing into Hal's immaculately manicured lawn, though Luna was strictly an indoor cat. Each instance, individually, was minor, easily dismissed. But together, they formed a pattern, a slow erosion of her good standing in the community. Ellie started to feel a tightening in her chest every time she checked her mailbox, a prickle of anxiety whenever her phone chimed with an email notification from the HOA's management company. Her home, once a bastion of peace, began to feel like a glass house under constant, critical observation. The social aspect of Willow Creek, which she had always found pleasantly low-key, turned hostile. At community potlucks, conversations would fall silent as she approached. Smiles that once seemed genuine now felt strained, forced. She caught snippets of hushed conversations, furtive glances. "Did you hear about Ellie Vance?" Someone would whisper, followed by a quick, guilty glance in her direction. Her once unblemished reputation was becoming tarnished, her character slowly, painstakingly, dismantled by unseen forces. She started to dread simple tasks like retrieving her mail or taking Luna out on her leash in her own backyard. Feeling the weight of unseen eyes, the judgment in the air. The feeling of being an outsider in her own community was a bitter pill to swallow, isolating her in a place she had once called home with such pride. What made it worse, what truly twisted the knife, was Hal Jensen's cunning use of his health. He had, upon his arrival, disclosed to several key figures in the HOA and various neighbors that he was battling a rare and aggressive form of pancreatic cancer. He spoke of grueling chemotherapy, of uncertain prognoses, of his desire to live out his remaining days in peace. This revelation immediately positioned him as an object of profound sympathy, a man facing an immense struggle. And he leveraged it, subtly but effectively. When he complained about Ellie's alleged infractions, his voice would be laced with a weary resignation, a plea for understanding for a man just trying to find peace in his final years. His condition became a shield, deflecting any criticism of his own intrusive behavior and lending an air of unimpeachable credibility to his accusations against Ellie. Who would question a man with cancer? The true nadir arrived on a humid August evening at the quarterly HOA board meeting held in the community clubhouse. The agenda included a general discussion on neighborly conduct. Ellie, having received yet another vague, yet pointed, HOA notice about maintaining communal harmony, decided to attend. As the meeting progressed, Hal rose to speak, his voice raspy, a performance of profound fatigue. He didn't mention Ellie by name, not directly. Instead, he painted a picture of a neighborhood under siege by certain individuals who show a blatant disregard for the quiet enjoyment of others, referencing unpredictable noise late into the night and a general lack of consideration for the needs of those facing serious health challenges. He dabbed at his eyes with a handkerchief, his voice cracking, as he spoke of his struggle for peace amidst a personal battle for life. The entire room turned to look at Ellie. The implication was clear, devastating. She felt her face burn, her hands clench. The humiliation was absolute, public, and delivered with a cruel, calculated precision that left her speechless, utterly exposed. Ellie fled the meeting, not even waiting for it to conclude. She drove home in a blur of tears, the familiar streets of Willow Creek seeming to mock her with their perfect, unblemished facades. She stumbled into her house, Luna greeting her with an inquisitive meow, but Ellie barely registered her presence. She collapsed onto her sofa, tears streaming down her face, the weight of the injustice crushing her. Her breath hitched in ragged sobs. Everything she had worked for, her peace, her reputation, her quiet sanctuary, had been systematically dismantled by a man who wielded his supposed illness like a weapon. The betrayal from the community, who had so easily swallowed Hal's narrative, felt like a personal affront. She felt hollowed out, utterly powerless, her anger a hot, throbbing pulse behind her eyes. For days, she existed in a haze of despair, her work suffering, her sleep restless and fragmented. The thought of confronting Hal directly filled her with dread. He would only use his condition against her again. But beneath the despair, a cold, hard resolve began to crystallize. Ellie was a graphic designer, a meticulous archivist of information, a creator of visual narratives. She understood the power of data, of evidence, of a story told with irrefutable facts. Denying rumors was futile. Fighting back with words against a man playing the cancer card was a losing battle. What she needed was not a defense, but an offense, a detailed, undeniable record, a timeline. Her graphic design background, her innate organizational skills, and her quiet, observant nature, once her strengths in her professional life, would now be weaponized. The initial tremor of fear gave way to a steely determination. She would not just clear her name, she would expose Hal Jensen for the manipulative, deceitful bully he was. This would be a project of precision, patience, and meticulous execution. Her plan began with technology. Over the next few weeks, Ellie systematically outfitted her home with discreet, high-definition security cameras. A Ring doorbell, strategically angled to capture a clear view of her front yard and Hal's house across the cul-de-sac. A motion-activated camera tucked into the eaves of her garage, overlooking the side yard. Another camouflaged amongst her rose bushes, covering the back. These weren't for security against burglars, they were for documentation, for unbiased, time-stamped observation. She also invested in a high-quality dashcam for her car, ensuring any interactions on the street, or even just Hal's comings and goings, would be recorded. Every camera was linked to a secure cloud storage, creating an unassailable digital archive of events, big and small, day and night. She reviewed the footage diligently, every morning and every evening, scanning for any abnormality, any interaction, any detail that could contribute to her growing dossier. Next, she began building her digital timeline. Using a sophisticated database program typically reserved for complex client projects, Ellie created an elaborate system. Each entry included date, time, location, a detailed description of the event, and linked media files. Photos, video clips, audio recordings from her phone, discreetly used in public interactions. She cataloged every single HOA notice she had received, cross-referencing them with her own activities and, more importantly, with Hal's actions. For example, the HOA notice about excessive noise was meticulously paired with video footage of her quiet birthday gathering, showing 4 cars, low ambient music, and guests leaving respectfully before 10 p.m. She also began to document Hal's own violations of HOA bylaws. His trash cans often left out a day too early or retrieved a day too late, his hedges overgrown beyond the permitted height, his loud leaf blower used outside approved hours, his dog barking incessantly at dawn, something he routinely blamed on others. Each infraction was meticulously logged, photographed, and often captured on video. The rumor mill was harder to document directly, but Ellie found fertile ground in the community's online forums. The Nextdoor app, a digital hub for neighborhood gossip and announcements, became her primary source. Hal, under his real name, was a prolific poster, often making veiled comments about certain residents or sharing concerns that perfectly aligned with the rumors circulating about Ellie. She took hundreds of screenshots, carefully noting the date and time of each post and cross-referencing them with the dates she heard the rumors or received HOA notices. She also cultivated a new habit of listening. During her walks at the grocery store, she would keep her ears open, noting down who said what, when, and where. While this hearsay wouldn't be direct evidence, it helped her map the spread of Hal's narrative and understand its impact on community perception. Her observations transformed from casual glances to clinical, analytical scrutiny. The most insidious part of Hal's manipulation was his cancer. Ellie, with her meticulous nature, started to note inconsistencies. A man with rare and aggressive pancreatic cancer, in grueling chemotherapy, typically wouldn't be vigorously power washing his driveway every other week, or spending hours in the hot sun tending to his prize-winning petunias, or attending every single community potluck and picnic. He often claimed intense treatment meant he had to cancel appointments, yet he was invariably seen performing strenuous yard work on those very days. While she couldn't access medical records, Ellie could observe public behavior. She started compiling a separate log. Date: 2017/9/15. Hal claimed severe fatigue from chemo on Nextdoor. Observation: 2:30 p.m., Hal seen loading 5 bags of concrete mix into his truck, drove to Lowe's, returned 2 hours later, then spent 3 hours building a retaining wall in his backyard. Appears energetic. This wasn't about proving he didn't have cancer, but about showing a pattern of deceit, a calculated fabrication of frailty to manipulate public opinion and escape accountability for his actions against her. Building the timeline became Ellie's obsession, a silent, all-consuming project spanning months. Her design skills came to the fore, transforming raw data into a compelling, visually undeniable narrative. She used infographics to illustrate the frequency of Hal's violations versus his complaints about her. She created side-by-side comparisons of his online claims of illness against video footage of his robust physical activity. Each piece of evidence was meticulously labeled, time-stamped, and categorized, forming an impenetrable fortress of facts. The database wasn't merely a list, it was an interactive presentation designed to be navigated with ease, each click revealing layers of incontrovertible proof. She knew an emotional plea would fall flat, especially against Hal's carefully cultivated image. She needed cold, hard, verifiable facts. The process was exhausting, demanding, and often emotionally draining, but each new piece of evidence, each undeniable truth she uncovered, fueled her resolve. She wasn't just collecting data, she was reclaiming her narrative, pixel by pixel, truth by truth. The waiting was the hardest part. Ellie watched Hal from afar, a calm observer in the storm he had created. He continued his charade, continued to subtly spread rumors, continued to leverage his supposed illness. She saw the pity in neighbors' eyes as they listened to his latest woe, the sidelong glances they cast at her. But now, it no longer cut as deeply. She knew the truth, and soon, everyone else would too. The temptation to unleash her findings prematurely was immense, but she resisted, knowing that timing and completeness were crucial. She refined her presentation, rehearsed her delivery, ensuring that her voice would remain calm, professional, and devoid of overt emotion. This wasn't about anger anymore, it was about justice, delivered with surgical precision. She became a shadow, moving through the community, invisible yet seeing everything, collecting every last piece of the puzzle. Finally, after nearly 8 months of relentless documentation, Ellie knew she was ready. Her timeline was comprehensive, a digital masterpiece of evidence. She contacted the HOA management company, formally requesting a special board meeting to address a pattern of systematic harassment, defamation, and misuse of HOA resources by a resident, supported by extensive, irrefutable evidence. The specificity of her request, coupled with her calm demeanor, ensured a prompt response. A meeting was scheduled for the following month, on a Tuesday evening, specifically for her presentation. Hal Jensen was informed of the meeting, though the full nature of the allegations against him was not disclosed, only that a resident was presenting concerns regarding neighborly conduct. Ellie knew he would be there, ready to deploy his usual tactics. She just hoped he brought his handkerchief. The community clubhouse meeting room felt unusually tense that Tuesday evening. The 7 members of the HOA board sat at a long table, their expressions ranging from curious to slightly apprehensive. Hal Jensen was there too, seated conspicuously in the front row, looking pale and somewhat frail, clutching a glass of water. A few other neighbors, drawn by the unusual nature of a special meeting, were also present, their whispers hushed. Ellie walked in, dressed simply but professionally, carrying a sleek laptop and a portable projector. She felt a profound calm. This wasn't about anger or revenge anymore, it was about a meticulously constructed truth. She set up her equipment, connecting her laptop to the projector, the screen flickering to life with her presentation's title slide. Willow Creek Estates, a pattern of misconduct and misinformation. "Good evening, board members," Ellie began, her voice steady and clear, cutting through the low hum of anticipation. "My name is Eleanor Vance, and I've requested this meeting to present documented evidence of persistent harassment, defamation, and the calculated manipulation of community resources by a fellow resident, Mr. Harold Jensen." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Hal visibly stiffened, his eyes narrowing. "For the past year, I have been subjected to a campaign of false accusations and rumors, resulting in numerous unwarranted HOA notices and a significant erosion of my reputation within this community. Tonight, I will present a factual timeline of events, supported by irrefutable digital and physical evidence. She clicked to the next slide, and the room was bathed in the glow of her meticulously designed timeline. Dates, times, locations, and brief descriptions appeared, each entry a hyperlink to a piece of evidence. She started with the excessive noise complaint. On date, Mr. Jensen reported boisterous gatherings. Here, she clicked, is a time-stamped video from my Ring camera showing 4 vehicles, no excessive noise, and all guests departing quietly by 9:45 p.m. This was a private dinner, well within community guidelines. The video played silently, undeniably. She moved through the presentation with clinical precision. Each alleged infraction against her was systematically debunked with video evidence, photos, and cross-referenced HOA rules. Then she shifted focus. Now, let's examine Mr. Jensen's own conduct. She presented footage of Hal leaving his trash bins out a day early, numerous times, clearly violating a core HOA bylaw. Photos of his overgrown hedges, well above the permitted height. Audio recordings of his dog barking at 5:30 a.m. when he had blamed her cat for creating neighborhood disturbances. She showed screenshots of his next-door posts, veiled accusations that, when juxtaposed with her evidence, revealed his deliberate attempts to incite negativity against her. Hal tried to interrupt. "This is preposterous. She's fabricating this. I'm a sick man, an innocent man." But Ellie didn't even flinch. She simply met the gaze of the board members and continued. "Mr. Jensen frequently cites his battle with pancreatic cancer to garner sympathy and deflect scrutiny. While I offer no medical diagnosis, I believe it is relevant to present a timeline of his public activities versus his claims of severe incapacitation." She then displayed side-by-side slides. One showed a screenshot of Hal's tearful next-door post claiming crippling fatigue from chemo on a specific date. The adjacent slide showed a video, time-stamped on that exact same day, of Hal vigorously power-washing his entire driveway, moving heavy equipment, and laughing boisterously with another neighbor. The contrast was damning, a stark betrayal of his claims. She continued, showing multiple instances of this pattern of deception. Hal's face, initially flushed with anger, now turned an ashen gray. He made a choked sound, reaching for his handkerchief again, but his usual theatrics were utterly lost against the overwhelming tide of Ellie's data. His tears held no power against the undeniable facts laid bare on the screen. The board members, initially skeptical, were now engrossed, their faces a mixture of shock and dawning realization. They saw the meticulous detail, the irrefutable evidence of a calculated, sustained campaign of harassment and deception. There was no room for doubt, no space for Hal's carefully crafted victim narrative. His words were just noise against the truth of her timeline. When Ellie finally concluded, the room was silent, save for the hum of the projector. She had not raised her voice, had not shown a flicker of anger. She had simply presented the truth. The consequences were swift and decisive. The HOA board convened a private session immediately after Ellie's presentation. When they reemerged, their faces grim, the board president addressed Hal directly. "Mr. Jensen, the evidence presented tonight is irrefutable. Your actions constitute a severe breach of community bylaws concerning harassment, defamation, and the misuse of HOA resources. Effective immediately, you are hereby censured by this board. You will receive formal fines for each documented violation of HOA rules, totaling several $1,000s, with additional fines accruing for any future infractions. Furthermore, you are formally prohibited from interacting with Miss Vance in any capacity other than what is absolutely necessary for the maintenance of your shared property lines, under penalty of further, more severe legal action by this association." The board also issued a community-wide email the following day, carefully worded, detailing new resident conduct guidelines and subtly referencing a recent incident involving defamation and harassment. Effectively clearing Ellie's name without directly shaming Hal, yet ensuring everyone understood what had transpired. Hal Jensen, once the sympathetic figure, was now a pariah. The community, once swayed by his tales of woe, now saw him for the manipulative bully he truly was. His cancer story, once a shield, now hung around him like a shroud of deceit. Neighbors avoided his gaze, conversations ceased when he approached. He received no more plates of lemon bars, no more friendly waves. His meticulous garden, once a source of pride, seemed to wilt under the weight of his isolation. Unable to bear the scrutiny and the utter destruction of his carefully constructed reputation, and facing mounting HOA fines, Hal put his house on the market a few months later. He sold it quickly and moved away, vanishing from Willow Creek Estates as abruptly as he had arrived, leaving behind a profound silence. Ellie Vance, meanwhile, found her peace restored. Her garden flourished, her home was once again a sanctuary, and the quiet contentment returned, now infused with the quiet strength of a battle won, not with tears, but with a meticulously constructed timeline of truth.